we're just doing some work on dividing fractions. Now this is probably the point where it causes the most trouble for students, because it seems like a very unnatural thing to do. Having one fraction, then a division sign, and then having another fraction. But I'm here to tell you that whenever you see that, you can employ this strategy called stay, change, and flip. Okay, what we're actually doing when we see that division sign, we're flipping that fraction after that division sign, and we call that multiplying by the reciprocal. And I'll show you that on the light board. And it's a technique that you need to recognize and see. And the good news is that if you've got a handle on multiplying fractions, you can make this one little change when you see the division sign, and you're back in the same game that you're familiar with. Why we do it? Why we teach you how to divide by fractions? I think it's leading you towards some more algebra type skills. I really like you to try and do your best and learn this. And now the fallback position is that if we're using a calculator, or you're using a calculator, if you put in the division sign and you put in everything that you see in front of you, the calculator will do these steps and get you the right answer. So, but once you get the hang of it, hopefully you'll find it a bit easier. All right. So I'll do some work behind the light board here and show you what I can, and hopefully then you'll begin to see what I'm getting at. All right. I've got to say, this is a combination of all the skills that you've learned in fractions here. The thinking here requires all the skills to come into play. Now, I'm hoping at this stage you're good at multiplying fractions. You're good at converting fractions into the improper fractions if needed, if they're a mixed number. And we're at the final step here. Now, there's a really interesting thing going on here with the division sign and the fractions. To me, they look like one and the same thing. All right, so we'll do a bit of work with what we do with when we see the division sign here. And the key things to understand is multiply and divide are opposite operations of each other. And that will come into play a little bit more when you do some algebra. So this might be new to you. So there's a process, we can follow it, and that process is multiplying by the reciprocal. And what we often, there's the little popular saying, stay, change, and flip. Okay, just to remind us to leave the first fraction as it is. When we see the division sign, change it to a multiply sign, and then flip the fraction after the division sign. So let's kick this off. Let's try an example here. We've got 5/8, and we're saying we want to know how many. Remember, another way to think about that division sign is how many, and ask that question. How many 3s? Well, if we have 5/8, which is something less than 1, and we divide it by 3, we should end up with a smaller number, we're guessing. Okay, so I want to see you use this trick here when you've got whole numbers. That helps us look at this second number as a fraction. So let's change this. 5/8, that stays the same. We change the sign here to a times sign, and we flip the fraction to 1/3. And now we're back in the same old game that we were with multiplying fractions. Is there any chance to cancel here? Any opportunity to cancel? No, there's not. So I can just multiply these through, and on the denominator I end up with 8 times 3 is 24. So it's really important to understand what that means. We've got 5/24 of 3. That's what fits into 5/8. And multiplication and division, or multiply and divide, are opposite operations of each other. So let's look at this of sign here now. Let's set this up as 5/24 times 3/1 and see what we get back. We should get back our original answer. And do we get that? Let's double check. We've got to cancel down here by the looks of things. Okay, I missed the opportunity to see that 3 was a common factor of 24, but let's do it here. 3 goes into 15 5 times, and 3 goes into 24 8 times. So that's 5/8, and that's what we started with all the way back up here. So hopefully we'll do this a few times so you get the hang of it. This particular bit here, I would consider this a little bit more of an advanced understanding. Most of you, when you do this work, you'll only be interested in the numbers that are there. Sometimes they might look a bit weird to you and you don't really understand what it means, but you write it down anyway. And I'm just hoping through this video and through this work that I can get you not only doing the stage change and flip, but also understanding what it means, okay? So I'm going to clean the board and we're going to do a few more examples. Okay, so here's my next example that I want to work with you. And we've got 2 as a mixed number and 3 on 11. And we're going to divide this by 5. All right? So there's a little bit of work that we need to do before we can apply the stage change and flip. We need to turn this mixed number into an improper fraction. 2 times 11 is 22 plus 3 is 25. That's going to work nice because look what happens next. We're going to change that sign, and I'm thinking about this as 5/1, okay? So when I flip it, it'll change to 1/5. Now I've got the opportunity to cancel on the diagonals here. 5 goes into 5 once, and 5 goes into 25 5 times. And our answer here will be 5 times 1 over 11 times 1. So let's try this out. 5/11 of 5 is technically our final answer. So to check if we're right, we should be able to do this 5/11 times 5/1. And we get 25/11, which is the same thing as I'm thinking about 25 is equal to 22 plus 3. We end up with 2 and 3/11 is our final answer. Tick. All right, so that's kind of flowing a little bit faster, but this is the answer without any thought, and this is the sort of next level of understanding of what's happening with fractions when we're doing division, okay? Now I'm just going to step up the game a little bit here. We've got 2 2/5 divided by 1 3/5. Okay, so I look at this and I cannot with my mind even guess what that answer is going to look like. Okay, so I'm following a process here, and by this stage when you hit these questions, they are, let's not mess around, they are sort of getting to that very processy, grindy type work. So 2 times 5 is 10 plus 2 is 12 over 5. I've turned that into an improper fraction. I just need an extra step here because I need to do the work over here as well, because I need to convert this into an improper fraction. Again, 1 as a whole number times 5 is 5 plus 3 is 8 over 5. Now my big tip here is just do not try to do too much in your head, because you'll make a mistake. So we're up to that stage change flip here. We can't do any cancelling yet. We need to set it up. We need to change the sign. We need to flip this fraction and turn it into 5 over 8. So that's the reciprocal. Okay, I probably haven't mentioned that word in other examples here, but the reciprocal of 8 over 5 is 5 over 8. Okay, so now I'm looking for ways to cancel, and I can see these 5s are going to cancel each other out. I think about this as 5 goes into 5 once. I see a common factor of 4 here, so 4 is going into 8 twice, and in here into 12 3 times. Looks a bit messy, but I can still see this is going to be 3 over 2 as my final answer. So I had no way of guessing that, but I'm just thinking now what it actually means, right? I'm doing this extra step that I'm trying to get you to think about here. We've got 3 over 2, or 1.5 of, and I'm looking back up here to see my divisor, and I've got 3 over 2 of 1 3/5. Now, if I do the work just quickly, multiply those together, I've got what I need up here. That's 8 over 5. I don't need to change anything. And if I multiply these together, I'm just going to take the time to cancel here. I'll get 12 over 5, and that is the same thing as 2 2/5. Okay, we might have lost that off the screen, but that's the same as 2 2/5. Okay, so everything checks out, and that's the way I want to get you starting to think about what's happening. Okay, final thing I want to say is you might run into some questions that look kind of complicated. We might have 3 over 8 times 4 over 5 divided by 2 over 3, for example. Okay, now my advice is that you need to focus in on this bit, and you need to apply the stage change and flip. So I'm taking a bit of extra time to write this out without doing anything to the first portion of this, and then I'm applying my stage change and flip, and there's no real work here. The reciprocal of 2 over 3 is 3 over 2, and now I have got the chance to do some cancelling if I can. And I've got 3 fractions, but for example here I can cancel this and say that 2 goes into 2 once, and it goes in here twice. And I'm looking at this new number 2 that will cancel with the 8. This will turn into a 4, and that will turn into 2 goes into 2 once. So it all looks a bit of a mess, and that's about all I can do. I've tried my best to be neat about this, and I'm just going to write this out as 3 times 1 times 3, and 4 times 5 times 1, and finish off the work here. This is going to be 9 over 20 as my final answer. And this type of question is set because you need to be looking at this, and it's a good chance for you to really demonstrate your understanding here. You know which fraction to flip. It's always going to be the one after the division sign, and you know, it's good practice to do a few of these types of questions. Okay, thank you.